That's a smashing hour because we actually have just an hour, and it seems like it's never enough when we have wonderful, wonderful guests like Sara with us today. So Sara is a very established and very well-known accessibility specialist who also loves front-end, loves CSS, and probably so many other things that we'll be talking about as well. You might remember the pizza show because Sara also loves pizza. Anybody likes pizza here in the house? Please write a plus in the chat if you can. But Sara, we are pizza friendly, aren't we?
Yeah.
So what kind of pizza is your favorite pizza actually?
The burrata margarita pizza.
Okay, so that this brings back memories as we had one in New York, right? So yeah, you want to say something?
No, I was just going to say Toronto for me because there was this really great place in Toronto, and he's not, I don't know if he was Italian or not, but he, like, I asked for a burrata pizza and they didn't have one. So what they ended up doing is they made a margarita pizza and they added this huge burrata on top of it in the middle of it. It was like,
this seems like I'm getting hungry already. That's wonderful to hear. So I have a story to tell, Sara, and I actually wanted to have your opinion because we have to kind of figure out what are we going to speak about today, because it's not like, you think that we're professional. I mean, Sara is very professional. There is no question about that. But it's not like we have a big script in front of us that we're reading out. We're just having a conversation. We also like your questions, and we're very much accepting your questions in here as well. Yes. But I just experienced something a while back, not long ago, and I thought, wow, the world is changing. And that was the fact when I was in a coffee shop around here. I'm here in Berlin right now. And there was this couple of young people and they were building websites, I thought, oh, this is pretty much like me, maybe 15, 20 years ago, right? And so they were sitting there and they were doing things I couldn't see the screen. And then one person who was a little bit older said to the other, who was a young guy, have you checked it in Internet Explorer? And the young guy said, what is it? And I thought, this is it. This is the time when things have changed for good, right? Because some people don't even know what Internet Explorer is. I guess, this is my feeling at least, that many people joining us here today know what Internet Explorer is. So if you do not, please write a minus in the chat.
I saw an interesting tweet today. Someone retweeted it. And this person, I'm not sure, they said that I don't know if it was the framework or something, but basically the only three things that you need to build websites is HTML, CSS, and JavaScript, but only few know that. And that is it is sadly true, because a lot of new people that are coming into the development field, they are getting straight into React and all these frameworks, and they don't know that to build websites, you don't need all that stuff.
Yeah, it's interesting because for me, I tend to work with larger corporations and enterprises, and I don't believe Greg, by the way, when he's saying that he doesn't know what Internet Explorer is, he's lying. And I realize that it's very often that many companies advertise for roles of, we are looking for a React developer, or we're looking for a Vue developer, not JavaScript developer, but React developer. Sometimes it goes a little bit broader, like a software engineer, right? But I think that just the way of phrasing it in a job posting, in job opening, kind of really already tells a little bit about the culture, right? And I also realized that very often people who might be very, very skilled in React and Vue, they kind of really lack fundamental skills about both, like the framework as well, just because they don't know the underlying foundation behind it. And then very often they also say, personally, this is a story of my life, but I don't believe in full stack. Sorry, everyone. I just don't believe in full stack. I don't think you can know React, Vue, JavaScript, and then also accessibility. So that's just probably not happening, right? So I think, I totally agree with you, Sara, on this, that we probably just need a foundation to be understood, to be properly understood.
I can tell from personal experience that the more I started spending time diving into accessibility, the less I found time to keep up with everything that was happening in CSS. And these are only just two things. So I cannot imagine someone diving deep into all of it from the front end all the way to the back end.
Yeah. Yeah. So talking about this, by the way, I thought that maybe my wonderful kind of segue from Internet Explorer to the future could bring us to some questions that I actually just wanted to raise because they were kind of not bothering, but they were on my mind lately. So when you think about career, when you think about the personal growth, and you think about just where you were maybe 10, 15 years ago and where you were now, what do you think was really, what kind of really significant moments or milestones that really helped you to get where you are today? Can you just drive us a little bit through your journey to where you are today?
I need you to be a little bit more specific because
Yeah,
the
so
question is too broad.
I know, yeah. Uh, because, you know, we, at some point we decided it's probably a good idea to just start building a website or design a website or anything like that. And eventually, like, I don't know, 10, 15, 20 years later, we end up becoming, you know, like in your case, front-end accessibility specialists who really knows well CSS, and there are many decisions along the way. So maybe there are certain things that really, you know, change the way you're building things, so change the direction of where you thought you will go. Like, for example, how did you decide to go into accessibility? It could become anything. It could be a JavaScript developer. It could be a full stack developer. I don't believe that, but you could have been, right? So why the path that you've taken?
It's something that I always recommend to people is to learn something only when you need it so that you don't overwhelm yourself with things. And most of the paths that I've taken have been from these points of how do I say that? That's how, for example, when I started learning about SVG, like I had no idea what SVG is, and I was dying to learn. Like I cannot wow, what's happening to my vocabulary today?
Don't worry, don't worry.
It's just that when I know that there is something that I need in my work, I have to learn it. And if I don't learn it, there's this scratch that I need to itch that I need to scratch. Oh my God.
Don't worry, that's fine, it's fine.
No, it's okay. I mean, I'm not embarrassed. I just really don't know what's happening to my brain today. So with accessibility, it also started, so with COVID, there's already now 2 years, and there was like 4 years before that. So I think it's like 5 or 6 years ago. I didn't even know what accessibility was. I hadn't even heard or seen the term accessibility anywhere. But then sometime it started coming up, showing up in my Twitter timeline. I was curious enough to learn what is accessibility. Accessibility means making your content available to everyone, regardless of their disabilities and what tools they're using, what input modalities, etc. And that just makes sense, you know. If you're a responsible developer, that's what you would do. And it's not just something that I'm trying, you know, preach right now. This is how I thought back then. I am a responsible developer, and if I'm building something, I need to be proud of it. I need to be like when my clients pay me money, I need to make sure that I've given them the best that I could. And I knew that if I'm not building with accessibility in mind, if my content is not accessible, if the things that I'm building cannot be used by all the users, then I'm not really delivering the best that I can. And I felt terrible for a while because before I learned about accessibility, I knew that a lot of the stuff that I was building before was not entirely accessible or inclusive of people. So I started learning and learning and learning. And the more question marks, the more you learn, the more you find out that you need to dive. There's always more question marks and questions coming up. And I would just start following those questions and diving deeper and learning. And I'm excited by these things. They inspire me, knowing that you're building something and then I don't actually get to watch people use it, but just imagining people, regardless of who they are, what they're using, what internet connection they're on, they're able to access that content and enjoy using it. This is what inspires me to keep doing what I do.
Yeah, that's actually the spirit of what I think many of us are doing on the web, creating, building, designing. You know, I really love personal blogs, and I really love those little side projects which usually don't have a particular purpose. This is just fun, kind of almost like an artistic expression of what it is that we're doing and what we want to create on the web. And just I think a month or 2 months ago, we just published this little overview of those, I would say, a little bit useless websites, but I love creating useless websites. This is like, this captivates me in a way because this is fun. This is great to just be able to do that. Like, for example, one thing that we just started playing recently, I don't know if anybody here in the chat and you as well know it, is GeoGuessr or GeoGuessr. Essentially, this is like you're being just brought randomly in a random location around the world with Google Maps, and you can navigate back and forth everywhere, right? And you need to be fast in guessing where you actually are, the location where you are, the country where you are. I learned so much from this. This is unbelievable. I just keep traveling from random places, somewhere in Indonesia or in, I don't know, Laos. And I'm like, wow, that's a beautiful typography right there. And I don't care about the time. Like everybody's competing, you need to be like, you have 1 minute, you have 2 minutes. I spent 15 minutes driving in the middle of nowhere in Laos just to see what the typography and people are like. I love this. This is incredible. So I kind of really like these projects. This is just really, really nice. But okay, I'm just getting a little bit too excited about this already, I guess, at this point. Sarah, what did you learn last week or this month, or anything that you'd like to share with wonderful people joining us here today?
I've learned so much, but can I just answer a couple of questions from the
Sure,
chat
sure, sure, sure.
first?
Oh, I didn't see them. Yeah, sure.
Okay,
Go ahead.
so first one is, when will your course be coming out? Hopefully this year. I'm aiming for, this was a completely random date, but I was aiming for my birthday, which is June 15th, because it just gives me enough time. Has been a lot of things happening in my life and my country and in everything over the last year. So my work has been super slow on it, but I'm nearing the end of the client project that I'm working on now. So I will be working almost full time on it for the coming few months, and hopefully it will be out early summer. And then, okay, we also unfortunately did not think enough or at all about accessibility. Yeah, we've all been there, but at least we're now aware and hopefully trying to do better. John said it would be helpful to discuss the handoff from designer to developer, ensuring with CAC 2.1 level AA. Is it now typically a problem or not a problem? It is. I have so much to talk about this topic. It could be now or it could be for a separate hour, but this whole designer developer thing, I even have a new talk that is just about design development.
It would be great actually to dive into it if there is interest for it. Let's just dive in. We're all very flexible here, so it's not like we have a pre-written script, anything.
Yeah, we don't.
Go, Sarah, go.
We come unprepared. So is it the designer developer thing, or is it the what did you learn this month? Because I'm super excited about the things that I've learned too.
You make it very difficult for me
Yeah,
again.
it's
So
a
let's
tough
just go
one.
with, the audience has to be preferred. So let's just go with the handoff thing first.
Designer and developer, yeah. Okay.
Isn't it resolved now? I mean, we're living in what, in the future,
no.
2022? We have
You
this problem for like a decade at least.
You would think so. No, but there is still a really big gap. There is still, I want to be very careful with my words here, because I don't want to be blaming designers or developers for this. If you think about it, they both have the responsibility to communicate with one another. Designers, from my personal experience, I've had great experiences with all the teams that I've worked on in general, but I've also seen a lot of designers not be super flexible when it comes to suggestions or recommendations for accessibility. They find it super hard to, for example, if you tell them that you need a little bit of extra contrast, yeah, but it doesn't really look good. It doesn't matter if it looks good because it's not usable. Well, it does matter, but there's priorities. There are patterns, there are things that I have to go through and discuss with projects over and over again. And there is a knowledge gap when it comes to accessibility on the designer side as well as the developer side. But please ask me something specific, because I have all these things in my head right now and I don't know which one to talk about.
Yeah, I would say the most important thing would be, so if you how do you actually organize the process in a way with a small team or a larger team to make sure that you don't end up with these horrible issues where things are not kind of implemented properly or things are not designed properly. So if you have designers and you have developers, would you say that in general there should be should there be a handoff at all, or is it more like a fluid thing where you go back and forth and you go back and forth and you adjust this here and this there? Like, what would be kind of the starting flow of this entire thing?
Designers and developers should be working together at the same time. So I don't think designers should be designing and then handing off anything to developers. The project that I'm working on now, when I started working on it, the designer was pretty much done with the design. So what I'm doing now, or what I've done over the last few weeks or a couple of months, is change a lot of things in the design. And I was discussing them with Nicolas. He's the creator of ESLint, and I'm building the website for ESLint. So we've had a lot of discussions about some of the decisions that were made in the design that were not very accessibility oriented. So I made a lot of changes, and Nicolas has been super open about them. But ideally, designers and developers should work together. So earlier last year, I've worked with a designer based in Germany, and I was lucky enough because he also believes in the modern workflow where designers and developers work together. And we did that. All of the teams that I've worked with have been small, so it's been easier for me to do this. But when I'm involved with a team, I try to get to work with a designer as soon as possible and to discuss all of the things. The only project that I think the workflow was ideal in was that project that we did last year for VPI. We were able to, the designer didn't have to do much work because we were building in the browser. So he would have an idea, he would sketch something. Once he literally did a quick sketch on paper, and then he sent me a screenshot, and I built that from the small patterns that we had in the style guide. Building things straight in the browser and then discussing them and showing him how they worked and how the interactions were supposed to be. And there are a lot of things that go into the user experience that are not taken care of in the design. So you don't see all the interactive states being discussed. You don't see, there's a lot of things, like simple things like focus styles and error messages. You should always use icons, not rely on color alone to convey information. From small issues to really big issues. And the big issues include, for example, redesigning an entire component because the way it's been designed, it cannot be implemented that way. Technically you can, because you can do almost anything with code. But as far as accessibility and the user experience goes, it just doesn't make sense, because if something is a button, it should be a button and it should not be confused with something else. If you have a design element that is supposed to do something, the semantics of that element are going to dictate or influence how that element is designed. So it should go in a lot of instances, it should go the other way around. You should start with the semantics of what you're trying to build, what you're trying to achieve, how this thing is supposed to work, and then design it. Because if you do it the other way around, if you start designing and then start thinking about those things, you're going to end up wasting a lot of time and going back and forth and discussions, and this works, this doesn't work. And
yeah, but would you say how does it actually work from the beginning? Let's say you have the kind of the kickoff of the project, right? Then you probably have to decide on, this is how often we're going to meet, and this is what the process is going to be. So the designer's team will probably go into this kind of exploration, discovery, creating mood boards and all the things, and eventually they will have some sort of a visual language, or I don't know, kind of the first mock-ups of what it's going to be like. When do you then kind of get into those meetings? Obviously, you'll be hopefully sitting there in the very first meeting when you just kick off everything. But at which point do you get on board and kind of provide either feedback or speak with designers about what is going to happen next and how it's going to be built?
I can't think of a specific point in time. My favorite project that I've worked on was a project with Super Friendly that we did for Herman Miller, and I was included in that project from the super early beginnings, even before anything was being sketched and designed and developed. That was amazing, and it was good for everyone because everyone got to pitch ideas, and ideas are really good, and everyone comes with their own experiences and points of view. So if you have the experience of an accessibility specialist, for example, you can pitch in with that. As far as design goes, I would say, again, I will mention that project from last year. So Jan had a bunch, let me say, if I'm going to speak in terms of atomic design, so he would design the tokens, the atoms, and then when it's time to assemble or design components and interactions, that's where I would be included the most, right? Because I would give, but there's also something beneficial. You don't need to have a developer in this particular stage if you know about this, or if you're basically, if you start designing, if you're a designer and you design with the tools of the web. So don't think in terms of design tools. Don't think in terms of a grid, a 12-column grid or an 8-column grid. Think about the web and the flexibility and tools like Flexbox and Grid and what's possible with them. One of the things that I did in my current project is I almost completely ditched that 12-column grid. Not completely, but almost ditched it, because a lot of the components and sections that I was building, they were super easy to implement in a responsive way without a single media query and without needing grid.
Yeah, that's interesting that you're saying that, because I see more and more companies doing something similar. I was, for example, very surprised when I found out that I'm working right now with European Parliament. And in the European Parliament website, obviously, there is a very old implementation and there is plenty of stuff going on. It's actually a big exercise in, I don't know, patience, I guess, because it's a really huge project where everything from content, navigation, and search has to be kind of reimagined almost, right? And even there, or even on gov.uk, no 12-column grid at all anymore. And so are we beyond that? Have we kind of moved away? And what did we replace it with? Is it just, what would kind of replace the grid in your case? Like thinking about like 12 columns, is it just, how do you operate it? Just based on breakpoints?
A spacing scale. So just like you have a type scale, you can also
Right,
have
right.
it has a name. So if you know utopia.fyi,
Yep.
you can generate the type scale and using that type scale, it also generates a
A
spacing
space scale, yeah.
space scale for you. I've been using that mainly, and in a combination with Flexbox and Grid. Of course, the designer still has input, or they still have to specify things like what is the spacing between these components and the spacing inside of that component. I'm not a designer, so I wouldn't be able to completely make these decisions on my own. But yeah.
Yeah, that makes perfect sense. It's interesting. Okay, so as we keep going, right, there is a lot of kind of overlap between designer and developers, and they will be communicating, and very often you would have this frequent meetings where, hey, what do you think? Hey, what do you think? And throwing over the Slack and then throwing back over the Slack and kind of trying to prototype in the browser and so on and so forth. But I guess at some point you have to establish what is the goal that we're kind of trying to achieve here. So what kind of level of accessibility do we want, right? And that's probably going to happen very early on, right? Like do one AA, do one AAA, and so on. But I'm more interested at this point, how does it then work long term? So what is the governance model to keep things accessible over time as the project evolves? Because imagine a new person comes in, they get onboarded, they might learn a thing or two about, what the guidelines are, but you are gone from that project and there is a small team who is maintaining it. How do you keep things accessible over time?
Okay, so first of all, accessibility is a process. It's an ongoing thing. It's not just a project that you do at the beginning and you're done with it. It does not end. It does not. You're never done with accessibility. There's always work to be done, and every single change or single component or user experience design change that you make, you have to make sure that it's inclusive and accessible. But I think my number one recommendation or tip or something that I consider to be completely necessary to ensure at least a minimum level of governance and making sure that the accessibility is taken care of over time is education. You need to run workshops, do testing with disabled users so that the designers and the developers, both of them, can see how these users use their products, what they need to learn from them. Run workshops, learn. There is a level of knowledge that I think both designers and developers should have when it comes to accessibility. And then the rest is, just keep doing things the way you always do. You keep learning and you keep improving and you can do user tests.
Yeah, absolutely. And also, I think one thing that I see a lot of people doing now as well, very similar to what we get with just regular linters and also GitHub actions and other things, where you just include a rule that tests for accessibility using X or something else, just to make sure that at least the basic things, be it color contrast and other things, are just taken care of. I just don't know how automated tools like that can be.
They're definitely not enough. So they help you catch low-hanging fruit. Like, for example, and I did some copy pasting throughout this project, and I ran Axe on the page. I got hundreds across the score, but hundreds scores across the board. But the only thing that was useful for me as far as running Axe was it was able to catch duplicate IDs. So I had two IDs because I copy pasted two components and I forgot to change the ID. That was the only thing. But if I had been using ARIA in a wrong way, like if my alt attributes were nonsensical, it wouldn't have been able to help me with that. So you need a human being to be working on accessibility.
Right. I just had an idea or question that I wanted to ask, and now it's gone. I was just listening too carefully, I guess, at this point, but I'm sure it will be coming back as well.
It'll come back.
Yeah, I'm sure. Yeah, so I think in many ways, when I look also at companies kind of who that spend a lot of time really thinking and rethinking the workflow, the better you bridge the gap between design and development, in the end, kind of avoiding handoff if you can, the better results you will get. All right, so that's kind of the spirit of it, I guess. All
Yeah.
right. Okay, let's see if anything else came in the chat as well. In the meantime,
Something weird is happening with the chat. Like I want to send a message to everyone, but I end up sending a DM. So if I've sent you a DM,
oh, you
I'm
need to
sorry,
change
it
it.
wasn't intentional.
There is this to everyone. You can change it.
I did, but
yeah?
it keeps changing. I don't know what changes it.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes,
That's
AXConf is coming up this month, and I haven't seen the lineup yet, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be some really great accessibility talks, and it's free, so you could attend that.
That's great. That's wonderful. Okay, so Sarah, why don't you share with us what else you have learned? Maybe even sharing your screen.
Ooh. Okay, I've never shared my screen on Zoom. Well, actually, I have, yeah, in meetings and client meetings, but never in front of so many people. So
Well,
let me just.
I have to ask while you're doing that. I have to
Yeah.
ask. I'm sorry, I'm not trying to be difficult here. Anybody
You're
has
always difficult.
no.
That.
Does anybody have to use what's the thing? Teams, Microsoft Teams for calls? I have thoughts about that. I'm not going to share and express them, but oh my machine really feels like it wants to fly once I start running Teams. That's
I don't like Microsoft Teams.
Okay, well, that's another way of putting it. So that's great.
It's a straightforward way of putting it.
It is, but we might have people from Microsoft joining us, and maybe they are working on Microsoft Teams.
It's not personal. Well, it's not personal, and maybe by saying this, they know that it's slow. I live in Lebanon, and we have a very slow connection here, and I get to judge people's websites and tools because if I can't use the tool because it's slow, then I get to have an opinion. I think like Browser Stack is a fantastic
definitely get
tool.
to have an opinion, Sarah. That's without saying.
Browser Stack is a fantastic tool, and everybody loves it and everybody uses it. But I've never been able to use it here in Lebanon because it requires a minimum connection speed that I simply don't have here. So I'm okay with saying that, yeah, Browser Stack is not super inclusive. I understand that maybe they have specific requirements that I might be like, I don't understand, but
yeah, I think that most of the time it's just legacy that you're building on top of existing infrastructure, and then it's just, you know, the main advantage of Zoom is that it was designed very early on to be stable and deliver video streams, right? And that shows off now. Oh, all right, Sarah, I think I interrupted you and you sharing your screen.
I'm glad you interrupted me because I'm looking for the things that I wanted to share. So you're just giving me some time.
Okay, well, you don't have any time anymore. The time is up.
Well, yes, I do, because I was going to share the website that I'm working on, but then I realized that it's not public yet, and I wouldn't want to do that before Nicholas approves it.
Okay,
so
that's fair enough.
I'll try to share the code, or just first let's talk about one thing that I've learned today. I've learned so much. First of all, I've been working on this website since November, so that's like 3 months now, and I'm building it using Eleventy. I've used Eleventy before. The first website that I built was in 2019. Yeah, because that was the Khan Academy annual report. It was a simple website, didn't dive too much into Eleventy. I'm still using Hugo on my website, but I'm making a switch in my current redesign. So I'm doing that also publicly if anyone's interested in following along on GitHub, although the progress is slow right now. I've learned so much about Eleventy working on the site, so many new things and so many things I want to use everywhere. Yeah, ask.
So then please go share the screen and spread the word.
Okay, but I need to be careful about what I share because I cannot share the website itself.
So can you not?
I could, I mean, I can't. I mean, I don't want to be the one to do it because Nicholas is supposed to make
it
yeah,
the Nicholas. I thought
week.
the one that your personal one. That's fine. That's fine.
Oh no, my personal. I can share my personal one. It's on. It's still no CSS, no styles, almost no content.
That's beautiful. That's probably quite fast and accessible, I'm sure.
It's going to be really good though. I have some really small bird touches.
Remember, by the way, the last time we spoke, it was like what 1.5 months ago, 2 months ago. You promised that there is something secret that you will share, or that you will eventually share, but you haven't.
In the next few months, and you are going to be the first one to know.
I see a trend here.
For a specific.
Kind of a pattern. Sarah?
Well, no, it's not well, sarasoueidan.dev, that's where my new website is living. It's not going to live there forever. It's just where it's currently being built. It looks terrible. The content is incomplete and I don't care. We're all humans and this is my website. I can do whatever
I'm pretty
I want
sure
with it.
about exactly. This is your website. You get to do whatever you want to do. All right. So maybe what else have you learned actually? So if I may I give an example? Just an example.
Yes, please. Yes.
So I'm just accidentally. I don't know if anybody knows Jerry McGovern, content strategy person. So I was so impressed with the stuff that he's doing, and I just stumbled upon this incredible article from Apart. I'm going to paste it in the chat here as well. He's actually speaking about top tasks. So imagine you have a really complicated site, or maybe you have 115 sites, like in the case of European Parliament. You have to bring it into a couple of websites or so. So where do you even start when you're dealing with 7, 8 levels of navigation, right? So the strategy that he has come up with, which I thought is really, really interesting, is you kind of start identifying what are some of the most critical and important tasks that people are doing on the site, right? You then get people to vote on those tasks, and you also get to kind of prioritize what is the most important thing. And then over time, over years almost, you just create this tasks for people to complete, find this piece of information on this site. And you do the same task over and over and over as you keep renewing and refining the design and iterating on it and so on and so forth, until you hit higher and higher completion rates. So by the end of it, you kind of end up A, prioritizing what matters, and B, making sure that people can find what they're looking for. And it's kind of a much bigger strategy there, but oh my, this is so useful for complex things that I have to work on at the moment. That's just impressive. So I was like, oh, how did I miss that? So 2015, 7 years ago, still very relevant.
Yeah, my learning is a lot more technical though.
Oh, please go. Oh, it's not about me, right? Please go ahead.
It is
There are
about
people
you.
who are typing, who are chatting about birds.
Well, yeah, because birds are awesome. Cats are not.
They are. What about dwarfs?
What's that?
Dwarfs.
Dwarves. That dwarf is pretty awesome.
Okay, well, that gives me hope. All right, now
we should name our secret project. Maybe we should give it the name of that dwarf.
Really? That could the dwarf show.
No, well, not dwarf show, but if you come up with a really cute name for that or good name for that.
Okay. I think that people start dropping off at this point. So let's better continue with some technical tips that you have to share.
Okay, so part of the thing that I'm building for the new Estland website, part of the design is, you know how at the end of every article, for example, sometimes you have a list of resources, further reading or stuff like that.
Sure.
The designer had these resources designed as cards. So you would have the image or the logo or the favicon on the left, and then the title. Let me try to show a screenshot of that part at least.
Randall, we can agree on dogs. They are awesome, but so are cats and birds and dwarfs and so many other creatures around the world.
By the way, I'm always teasing when I say that cats. I mean, I'm indifferent about cats, and my sister has a cat. And
indifferent is a statement as well. It's kind of it's strong enough. Okay, keep going.
Neutral. I'm neutral about that.
I mean, neutral would be they are okay, right? Indifferent is indifferent. It doesn't matter. Let's not go there. I don't like cats either. If we have to be honest. I mean, I have nothing against cats per se. It's like, this is not what the show's supposed to be about. That's okay.
Okay. I will just...
So Carl is wondering, why do we have the cat mascot? Actually, that was not my idea. It was, maybe some of you remember, if you ever attended the Smashing Conf in Freiburg in Germany, it was the very first time when we had the conference. Mark Tilly is in the room, so he will know for sure. And so our designer, our illustrator, he just came up with an idea of, well, we need to have some sort of maybe a mascot for the Smashing conference. And we thought, okay, well, go for it. Let's just explore. So he came up with the cat, and all of a sudden we had the cat being as a conference mascot that year. And then we obviously we wanted to do a redesign anyway. And so we said, okay, so we have cats and we have more cats because we had more conferences. And then it was too late. So that was the story. We just ended up being surrounded by cats from one day to another. Well, not unfortunately, Mark. This is just yeah. Well, it's a little bit too late. Yes. Now you know the story. So Sarah, how are you doing on the other side? There?
I'm ready to. I'm not going to be sharing like crazy things. Just showing what the cards look like and the code that we ended up with today.
Yeah, Marcus just wrote catastrophe. That's funny. It's funny. All right.
You can see my screen. Okay, so this is what the section of the design looks like. At the end of every article, you have further reading and then the list of links, and every link is displayed as a card. I have never implemented anything like this before, and I had no idea how to do it and how to get the metadata of the website. I asked on Twitter, and as always, Twitter has been super helpful. I got some pointers here and there. One of them was to Metascraper. Just in case you're wondering, this is Clover app, which is absolutely fantastic. No time to show you what it does. So what I ended up with is using Metascraper, which basically it's a library to easily scrape metadata from an article on the web using Open Graph, JSON-LD, regular HTML metadata, and a series of fallbacks. You give it a URL and it's going to fetch all that metadata from that URL for you, and then you can use that. So to use that in Eleventy, and after spending a couple of days on this, confession, JavaScript promises are still a weak point for me, because I don't know why my brain is still, I know the promises syntax is supposed to make reading async code easier, but it just confuses me even more. I still feel that a lot of the old JavaScript syntax just is easier for me to understand and read. So there's a lot of async stuff happening, and I was using, right now in this code here, we have nonjux. We're creating a shortcode for nonjux and the Eleventy config file. I was using the regular add nonjux shortcode, and then I had an async function inside of that. And if I had more than one link, it would end up giving me the result of only one of them, and applying that metadata to all three of the links. It was a complete mess. So I contacted David Darns today, because he was, we had this discussion on Twitter, and he said that he might be able to create a plugin for Eleventy to basically do this, where you provide a URL and it would create a card for you based on the metadata of that URL. What we ended up with is this, basically. So at the beginning of the, I'm assuming some Eleventy knowledge here, I'm sorry about this. So at the beginning of the config file, you require Metascraper and all the rules that it comes with. So if you want to show the image from a URL, you use Metascraper image. If you want to show the publisher, the title, the URL, there's a rule for every part of the metadata that you want to show. And then you require GOT, and then you use that. In order to work around the async issues that I was having, David used add nonjux async shortcode. So you can add shortcodes, or an async function for shortcodes. I'm really bad at this.
No, you're really great at this.
Thanks. So yeah, what he ended up doing, what David ended up fixing in my code, is using the async function outside, so that we don't have any async functions inside of the shortcode function anymore. And then it returns this piece of markup, and then adding some CSS to this, I end up with this design. So literally, and how to use that inside of my HTML, you wanna, for example, instead of adding a list of URLs using Markdown the way you would normally do at the end of an article, you could do something like this. So it would say, I call the shortcode link. You would have the link and then the URL /blog/focus styles, for example. And this is all you have to do. When you provide the URL using the link shortcode, it's going to automatically convert that part of the page into a card by getting or fetching the metadata of that website and then generating the HTML. Pretty cool, pretty awesome. Took me a couple of days. That's why I'm super proud of it. And super thankful.
That looks great.
For David for helping me with this. This is only one thing. Like, there is a lot of things. Eleventy doesn't come with a default way to create categories. It does come with ways to create tags, but not categories. So I also ended up using someone's script to do that. I need to stop talking just because I don't want to keep going.
That's okay. That's okay. I mean, from my end, one thing that I discovered lately, and this has changed my life forever, because I do a lot of usability testing. We had a little bit of technical insight now, usability testing, and I discovered a tool that just changed everything for me. Is anybody here in the chat familiar with Pastel? Anybody using Pastel? Wow, Pastel is incredible. I'm going to paste the link in the chat as well. And I'm going to show it. This is just great. So there is a really great free version, but even, that's usually enough. But I just want to show what it looks like. Essentially, it's very simple, and it's pretty much like InVision and everything else as well. But what it allows you to do is you plug in a link essentially on whatever it is you're working on, and then you just send it to to whoever you would like to test it with, right? It's kind of basically usability testing. And what it creates is this canvas. It just needs a bit of time to load. I think it was pretty okay, right? So this is just a website that I'm working on at the moment. Right, it's just a little bit slow at the moment. I'm not quite sure why it's the case. So what everybody can do is essentially like InVision and everybody else, you can just add some comments in there. And these comments, and that's the good part, they can be labeled, right? You can actually track the progress of those things as well over time. So as you can see here, you can actually just leave comments, leave notes on every individual part that you would like to change. It also creates this screenshot automatically. You can also send it to you automatically via email. You can plug it in then into Jira if you like. This is just really, really nice in here. Plus all the labels, it's also searchable. And this is just really nice. And then the better part is, if you think like, okay, I think I'm done with it now, you can plug in another version, right? And then you can ask the same people to check it again, right? And obviously you have this progress tracker where you can say, okay, I fixed this. And you can also actually go from, between pages. It's all fully responsive tool, right? And it's kind of real, right? So you don't get a screenshot where you have some comments on or anything like that. This is just brilliant and beautiful. Also, obviously responsive and all as well. So you can check it on mobile then too, and people can choose. It's pretty much like responsive mode in here, embedded too. I mean, there are plenty of tools like that, I think, but this one is for me, well, the discovery of the month, I would say. So I highly encourage you to use it, even if it's just free. It gives you 3 days unlimited use for a screenshot or for a website that you want to test it on, right? And it has plenty more features as well. Very, very recommended. Did you know about this one, Pastel, or do you use something else, Sarah, in your work?
No, I've never. Although I was thinking maybe the link that you sent me when you showed me that website the first time was using.
Yes, probably, yes. Yeah. So that for me was just unbelievable. I love this so much that it's just unbelievable. And the other one is Miro. I mean, I cannot live without Miro anymore.
Yeah, use it in your workshops all the time.
But not even that. So it's also just for. So I was working with another company, but there was a huge specification process in place, and they were using essentially PDFs to add comments on that PDF, and then it was kind of going back and forth with clients because they were kind of digitizing print processes into digital, and we kind of moved to the Miro process where we have the vocabulary for badges and icons and everything. And oh my, this is such a game changer. I'm just in love with this new wave of tooling that we have over the last couple of years, maybe 5 years or so. They're so well designed. It's just great. And I mean, we're happy to be alive, even although it's wonderful pandemic time. This is a great time for those things, I'm sure. Sarah, bring something on. What else do you have that you want to show? I think we also have a question from Vince.
Yeah. I work as a front-end dev, but I'm going to be taking a UI course. What would you suggest for a place to learn more about designing for accessibility? So basically accessibility for designers. And Alex is asking for a link to Miro. Miro, I think, not Miro. Yeah. Accessibility for designers. I know that. Can I disclose that, Vitaly?
Yep.
So yeah, there's a book about accessibility for designers coming from Smashing soon, I think. I will be tech editing that book, so yay. There is that, but as far as courses go, I'm not aware of any, to be honest. And I don't want to be doing any shameless plugs because I almost like, I never do that, but my course is hopefully going to be helpful for both designers and developers. So if you can wait a few months, cool. If not, I would recommend just reading through articles here and there and learning. I can recommend people, I can recommend blogs, but a full course that walks you through everything that you should know, I don't know of any course at the moment.
Yeah, so there is essentially just a few resources I can plug in here. So first of all, we have Marcus here with us. Marcus has written a book about accessibility in Vue.js, which is also free to read on the web, but you can also get, I don't know, is it printed already? No, maybe we should talk about this with you, Marcus, as well. That's one thing. I just plugged it in here in the chat. It's accessiblevue.com. And then there's also, I think, maybe I'm mistaken, Marcy Sutton, she also has created or is creating a sort of course, but it would be heavily on the JavaScript side of things.
Yeah, I think she's doing workshops. I'm not sure if there's going to be a video
Yeah,
course.
I'm not sure if it's video course. I think there was, but maybe I'm wrong. I'm not sure, to be honest, at this point. Oh yes, I'm going to plug it. Not sure. I'm going to plug it in as well. And of course, we do need to plug in Sarah's link. Sarah, what is the link? I forgot. Can you plug it in?
How could you?
I'm forgetful. I'm like cats.
Ah, good. Practicalaccessibility.today. It's still work in progress, but you can sign up for updates. Excellent. I won't be spamming your emails because I've only sent one, I think.
I don't think you ever spammed anybody in your life. Yeah, you're just a nice person, aren't you?
Thank you.
Well, I think so.
It's more peaceful. It's more peaceful that way.
Yes, it is. So we have 12 minutes left. So at this time, I'd like to remind everybody that it's a very flexible session. Again, if you have a particular question you'd like us to bring up or discuss, please write in the chat. We'd be happy
about
to
anything.
discuss.
Anything. It doesn't have to be about code or anything like that.
Just maybe not about pizza. I think we already discussed it too much, maybe.
Vitaly and I were talking about setups before we started this smashing hour, and I said how I love seeing people's setups and photos of them, and we had this idea of asking you to share photos of your setups, but we can't do that in the Slack. In the Zoom chat.
Yeah, it probably will need to do that on Slack one day. But I think, this has been so remarkable because it's like I feel like I got in a trap. Right when 2020 happened, all of a sudden I realized, okay, I probably need a secondary screen because I never use a secondary screen like ever. Like at all. I'm like, how could I? I would love to have 4 screens in front of me. And now it's like, it's just unbelievable. And I have a mouse and I have a keyboard and I have I even have a printer. Look at me. I have a printer, Sarah.
Whoa. That is so old fashioned.
Well, but it's useful.
Sorry, I'm just making jokes.
That's okay. Yeah, but it's not a great printer, so that's okay. I think that's Henri, we don't bring back printers. Shouldn't everything be digital at this point? I mean, you can highlight in Miro, you could highlight in ebooks as well. So there is no reason to bring back printers. Henri.
This hour is not sponsored by Miro, by the way.
And it's not sponsored by printers in any way either. Yeah.
Okay. We got a couple of questions. You want to go over them, or should I?
Yes, maybe let's go with, I don't know where you are in the chat.
There's a question from Bob at the beginning. Before using 11T, what were you using to build your site? The current website is built using Hugo. Hugo is fantastic, but it's a little too opinionated for me, and I needed a little bit more flexibility because I started getting creative with the layouts on different pages on my site. I didn't want them all to use the same page or the same layout. I needed a little bit more flexibility, and that's why I'm switching to 11T. And the community is amazing as well, and Zach is really awesome. What is 11T essentially used for? 11T is a static site generator. So it is used to generate static websites, HTML, CSS, JavaScript. It is really great for someone like me who has zero backend knowledge, and you can create a full-fledged website and host it on Netlify. Literally takes 5 minutes to go from local to fully hosted. Pineapple on pizza is a must. No, it's disgusting. I'm sorry. Personal opinion.
That's very opinionated, I would say.
Yeah. I mean, we all have opinions. I don't judge people for liking a pineapple on pizza, but although Italians
you just
do.
did.
Well, I know that was my opinion. I think it's disgusting, but I'm not saying that the people who do it are disgusting. I think that it tastes disgusting. I've tried it.
Okay, that's fair. Okay. Next.
What's the one thing that makes you cheer in accessibility when reading a brand's style guide? Any mention of accessibility? Oh, actually, no, not any mention, because a lot of people and a lot of pages and a lot of websites, they mention accessibility just because it's sort of become a buzzword. So there's all this talk about accessibility, but the code is not really accessible. So you can tell that not a lot of effort has went into making it accessible. But the one thing that makes me really happy is seeing real effort. So you can see, you can tell, when you visit a website or a style guide, you can tell if accessibility has been woven into everything from the start or not.
Right.
Is replay available? Replay of these hours, smashing
Probably
hour
rewatch, yeah. So it is being recorded, so we'll be sending out a link to it as well, and probably tweeting it as well, of course. We have a question from Derek as well. What is the best method for testing sites for accessibility to best emulate how disabled people would use our site?
Get disabled people to use your website.
Yes, actually, that's, yep. Yeah, this is, I cannot emphasize just how important that is, actually. That also not only important for accessibility testing, but also creates this really strong sense of alignment and understanding within organizations. Because very often it's just seen as this edge case that's, we will do that when we have time. But once you see actually people who have maybe situational disability or temporary disability, who just have massive issues because of one thing or the other, and if you make a button look a little bit more like a button so people can spot it, or if it actually behaves like a button, it makes a tremendous difference. So that is absolutely with you on this, Sarah, as well.
Yeah.
Alex is still a big fan of Hawaiian pizza, invented in Canada, apparently. Will they change your mind, Sarah? These wonderful people joining us here today.
About pizza, pineapple and pizza?
Yeah.
No, never. I love these people. You're all awesome. You're all amazing. I'm pretty sure you are, but pineapples and pizza is a big no.
Okay. All right. Let's see. How to find contact disabled people to get them to test the website?
There are agencies and there are services. Some people, I don't have any names at hand right now. I think I have a few that I'm going to mention in the course, but I don't have them at hand right now. But there are, I wouldn't call them an agency.
But it's more like yeah, I think I know what you mean. It's more like
a group of people that offer accessibility testing services, and some of them do it for free. I don't have any names at hand right now, but some people do it for free because they want the web to be better, and they are disabled people using screen readers and other input modalities. So you could go with that option.
Yep. There's also a question from Helena. How do you check for accessibility other than through automatic tools like X? How can you be sure that what you build, ARIA, alt text, etc., are built okay?
You need so I'm going to answer this question from my personal point of view, how I would do it. First of all, learn how to use a screen reader or multiple screen readers, because testing in only one screen reader is technically or conceptually the same as testing in just one browser, because screen readers behave a little bit differently, and there are different, you get slightly different results across screen readers. That doesn't mean that these results are wrong or bad. It's just that you want to make sure that the experience is well, and also support for certain features like ARIA is also different across screen readers. So you want to be testing for accessibility just like you test for anything front end on the browser. Learn how to use screen readers. If you don't have access to more than one, there are tools like, what is the name?
You mean like a service, or you mean?
Yeah, it's like Browser Stack for screen readers. I
really?
tweeted yeah. By the way, those who are going to take my course are going to get 6 months free subscription to that service. How could I forget the name?
Yeah, let me just double check. I had no idea. No, I don't see. I don't think I can find it easily.
I can find it in my email if I go to my email.
Yeah. I mean, maybe you can just tweet it out and we'll retweet it as well.
Yeah. So you can learn how to use screen readers, learn how to use different tools. I think you will probably not have access to all the tools, all the screen readers, all the different input modalities. So you want to learn. There are specifications. Basically take a course. Again, not a shameless plug, but take a course, learn how to use ARIA, just like you learn how to use HTML and JavaScript, you can learn how to use ARIA. At the end of all of that comes actual user testing. So you can do a lot on your own by learning, applying, and testing on different screen readers. But at the end, at the top of all of that, there's always going to be user testing if you can.
Mm-hmm. Ola is also saying that we had a blind person come to show our company how to use their website. That was an eye-opener, especially for management. Yeah, I can only agree with that as well. There is a question that came up from Florian.
Assistive labs, there it is. Got it.
Assistive, okay.
Assistive.
Excellent, thank you, Sarah. There's also a question from Florian. A green line for accessibility documentation. Have you heard of it? I don't think I did. That's interesting. Okay. There are a couple of really great resources that are coming in the chat. That's wonderful to see. We are almost, finished with the smashing hour. So let's just. Oh, we have 42 new messages.
Will we see Sarah speak at a Smashing Conf this year?
Yes.
I don't know. Vitaly should answer that.
Maybe we should talk about that. I think that you will. We will. Well, the question is, when can we run conferences? And I mean, at this point, it's still very much unclear, right? Yeah, we do run online workshops. I'm just saying. Well, we're hoping that we will be able to. At this point, everything is not very clear, right? I mean, probably the safest bet is Germany, if you ask me. So because things are a little bit more controlled, I would say, in Germany. So in Germany, we're probably going to run one. I don't know. What is may I ask? I don't know if it's a public thing or not. What is like a visa situation? Like, can you just travel from Lebanon now, or is it getting a visa or anything? No,
I have no idea. I have been invited to a couple of conferences this year. I want to say yes to them, but first I need to check all these details. I haven't traveled in 2 years, so I don't know what the situation is like now.
Yeah. So also, Alessandro was wondering, how are things in Lebanon actually?
It's depressing just thinking about it. Oh wait. You can still hear me, right?
I can hear you, yes, but it's dark. Is everything okay?
Yeah, that's power. This is the situation in Lebanon. The power just went off, but I think it should be back in like a minute or so. That's because we have secondary power, but a lot of the population here, they don't have power all the time. Wow. We currently have like the weather is super cold. People don't have access to heating. Now you can see me, I think.
Yeah, almost, I think. Yeah, now I can. We don't see the camera.
Oh, okay, because the camera is off.
Yeah.
I am back.
Wow,
yeah, so that's power outages. There was a serious fuel crisis. If you read the news, you can get an idea, honestly, because that's my UPS, by the way.
Oh, okay.
Without it, I would not be able to do this uninterrupted.
Right. Wow, Sarah, that's so how do you actually, if it's maybe the last question for today, like how do you actually work? Do you wake up, like what is your routine? Do you wake up very early, like 4 o'clock, and then off you go? This is your time. And when do you go to sleep? Like how does it work for you? What's best?
My days are super flexible, but I do wake up super early, sometimes 4 a.m., sometimes 5 a.m. Sometimes yesterday I woke up at 2 a.m. for whatever reason, and I couldn't sleep again. So I worked at 3 a.m. and then I slept again. That was not a good idea, by the way. I wake up super early. I do work early in the morning. Sometimes if I'm really in the flow, I will work all day. Sometimes I will finish all of the day's tasks really early in the morning and take the rest of the day off. I could either go out or maybe work on writing something, working on my website. I'm currently working on 5 things at the same time, so I can keep myself pretty occupied.
I can imagine, of course. Oh, should we be expecting any new articles coming at any time?
Yes, there will be quite a few I call them macro case studies. So things that I've learned and that I've done while working on client projects or personal projects. I have too many drafts. It's starting to get depressing. So I want to start going through them one by one and publish.
Excellent. Okay, so as we're just wrapping up in here, so maybe just a few, words of wisdom from Sara Soueidan. So if you want to send a message to the wonderful people joining us today, for some people it's just the morning that's, the day is starting. For some it might be also late, they might be getting to sleep at some point. What would be your message to the world? Do you want to
Honestly, the
send one?
best advice I could give.
Yeah.
It is not complete. It's not very work related, but the effect of that can improve your entire life, not just your work. Eat well, exercise, move daily. There's a saying: "Those who do not move do not notice their chains." And there's another saying, but by another one of my yoga teachers, my favorite yoga teachers, he said, once you stop moving, you start dying. So keep moving, keep eating healthy, take care of yourself, and everything else will take care of itself.
Yeah, that's very strong. Thank you so much, Sarah, for joining us here for the Smashing Hour. I'm
Thank
sure we'll
you
be
for
hearing
having me.
more from you in the next month, weeks or so. Maybe
Hopefully, yeah.
we'll be working on that secret project that we were planning in the beginning before it started. Thanks everyone for joining as well. It's wonderful to see so many people coming in here. Jarain, would you like to say a few parting words about, a message? No? No messages. No. I was like, oh no, that's fine. If you happen to be a Smashing member, that's wonderful. Thank you so much for joining in as well. If you're not, we also have a Smashing membership for all the wonderful people like you, where you also get friendly discounts and get to attend other things and books as well. In our news, in the Smashing news, we have a new book coming up very soon, so please stay tuned. It's all about designing for touch with very new research that was conducted over the last 2 years. So that's very, very exciting as well to see. That's coming up. Beyond that, I just hope that we will get to see way more Sarah in the next month to come. I'm very much looking forward to it. So everyone, thank you so much for joining. Sarah, thank you so much for joining as well.
Thank you for having
I'm
me.
going to go for a run now. It's really cold outside, but I guess I have to. So that's me.
Well, it'll be less sweaty. Think about it that way.
Oh, okay. That's a good way of looking at it. All right. Thanks everyone for joining. Thanks, Sarah, for joining as well.
Thank
And
you.
see everyone next time. Bye-bye.
Yeah.